5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, man. Now I'm talking about radio. Back for another week, man. 91.7 WVXU, your HD2 station. Or you're streaming us live on Radio Artifact. Yeah, and we're back for another week. It's been billions of gallons of rain falling from the sky this past week. Did y'all stay dry?
Tried.
Try to stay dry?
Worked
For
hard.
the most part, yeah.
That helped.
Always working hard. Got to get out here and make something shake every single day. It's more and more obvious every day. Your home is just somewhere to go and sleep in between the work.
That's right.
You can't even chill there no more. People with real nice houses, I feel like they rarely enjoy them.
True.
Yeah, man. So get lost in the work, get submerged in what you love, and find your discipline. Because discipline is very necessary for life. For a productive life, I would say.
I'll agree.
Definitely.
Yeah. Got a special guest in here this week. Well, first let me introduce myself. My name is Six. For those of you who don't know, this is the Nomtombout Radio show on 91.7 WVXU HD2. If you're looking for me on Instagram, you can find me at Blaze6513.
And I am Vibe One, of course. Shout out to everybody on the KY side: Covington, Newport, Erlanger, Florence, Burlington, Campbell County, Bellevue, all surrounding areas. Peace and love, Cincinnati. We back once again. And if you need to look for me, well, definitely, you need to look me up on Instagram. It's Mr. Vibe One, VIBEONE. Facebook VIBE-ONE. Twitter VIBEONE. We back again, everybody.
Yeah, and we want to thank everybody for listening, viewing wherever you at right now. If you're sitting somewhere eating your dinner, 7 o'clock somewhere. So we appreciate you coming back to the show. Got a very special guest today. I'll let her introduce herself and kind of, we're going to have some real useful information. So introduce yourself, special guest.
Thank you. I'm Cathy Cook. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for 36 years, and I concentrate my practice in the area of family law, which includes everything from divorce to post-divorce matters, and especially custody and child support, and those important issues involving children.
Yeah. So we appreciate you coming through again today. I talked to you on the phone a couple weeks ago just because I was searching for somebody who could come drop the facts on issues like that, because I don't want to just be giving my opinion all the time, man. I know people be out there like, ugh, I hate when he opened his mouth. Oh, my God. So now you can't argue with me. Argue with her. And
That's
she knows
right.
the facts and the law. So tell the people where you're from and kind of.
I practice in Cincinnati. I've been here since I came here to go to law school and never left. And I run my own practice. I have an associate attorney and a staff. And I'm very happy to be on my own and working hard for my clients.
Where did you come from? And
Well, I grew up in Madison, Indiana, down on the
okay.
river between here and Louisville.
Okay.
My folks were both educators. My dad was the superintendent of schools. My mom was the high school librarian. So education is very important to me. And if you go to our website, it is full of educational materials for free for people to have some understanding of what they're getting into in these issues.
And what's that website?
It's Cathy Cook, CATHY, COOK, Cathy Cook Law, LAW.com.
Okay. So go ahead and check that out if you need that information. Want to kind of open up. What inspired you to even go the law route? Because that's a lot of school.
That is a lot of school, but I decided that in 8th grade. I love to debate, and I am a crazy constitutionalist and believe that everybody deserves a due process, which is very important in our system. And so originally I was a criminal defense lawyer because I felt that those were the people who were really having the whole world against them. So I was a criminal defense lawyer for about 20 years. And then what happened was many divorce cases started having issues involving criminal allegations. Some were real, some weren't. And I started representing people in the criminal side of these issues, and then sometimes I'd have to still represent them and help the divorce attorney in the divorce case, because that doesn't always end the issue, because there's a different burden of proof in each case. So I started doing those, and then gradually I started getting divorce case referrals because of that. And so that's what I do. And I tend to do the ones that are very difficult and end up in court and end up in litigation.
I read a funny fact, but tell me, is it true, man? Who's the more violent sex, men or women, in these domestic cases?
Well, that's a little hard to say. However, I will tell you that I think there are a whole lot more women who engage in such activity that doesn't get reported.
Because you can't as a man, you can't go say, my girl, she hit me, and now I want to press charges. You can't do that.
Well, you can, but a lot of times it's a hard sell.
You ever had to do something like that?
No, I don't usually get involved until the charges are already brought.
Okay.
Now, I have had cases where there have been battered spouses on both sides, and I've had to get them to help, counseling help, shelter help, things of that nature. And we've had to have psychological evaluations of the other side to try to show there's a problem.
Yeah.
So I have done that.
All right. You heard the fact. Turn down. Be calm, man. It's all right, man. You don't have to let your fist speak.
That's true.
Use your words.
Use your words.
And the bad part is, if you do let your fist speak, it really hurts you when you go to look into custody issues and parenting time and having children around.
Yeah. And we're going to get into all of that. We were talking about marriage earlier. Marriage is a business, right?
It certainly is. Under the legal system, it certainly is.
That's why you have to have a license. It's like going fishing. You can't just go fish somewhere. And it's crazy. That's crazy to me.
Well, what's crazy about it, in my opinion, after all these years, is we make it far too easy to get married, and then on the other side, it's far too difficult to get divorced.
Right.
So maybe people should be educated a little more about what it's like to get married and what all the consequences are if you do that. Now, on the other side, you'll find a lot of people who decide not to get married, and then they have even bigger problems when they go to split up, because there's no law to decide who gets what. And there's no law to decide about the kids, except, guess what? The law is that the mother has custody. And the father has to fight for it.
Yeah.
Not in a divorce. In a divorce, they're equal.
Mm-hmm. What's the divorce rates looking like nowadays?
It's about 50% still.
About 50%. That's a high turnover for an investment like that.
It is.
What do you see most people getting divorced about or over?
Well, I'd say that a lot of times people give up too quickly. You know, the grass is always greener.
Yeah.
And they just decide, why should I work at this? I'll go find somebody else and start over. A lot of times it's money. A lot of times it's disagreements on parenting.
Yeah.
It is.
That money issue, I see that break a lot of people up. It's so discouraging. Like, you got two people, you like, how we broke together? Like, I was fine before I met you. Well, sometimes you can't break up because that's the only way you're going to be able to go to that dental appointment next month.
That's true. Health insurance can play a large part in people staying together.
Wow.
It's overwhelming.
Which is still going the lines of the business part of it.
Right.
You still like gotta handle it like a business. That's crazy.
Well, another thing I see is that people, they get married, but they don't merge their money. And then they think when they get divorced, it's still their money. No. It's all marital. If you earn it during the marriage, it's marital. So it doesn't matter if you keep it in your name and I keep it in my name, it's still marital money. So that can create issues too. And it seems to me you were talking about, you know, having a business would partner that money. They would put that money together. I don't understand why people, number one, don't talk about money before they get married and see what their philosophies are, then merge their money and come up with a plan on how they'll pursue things.
Because it's not about the money in the beginning. It's because I love that they did you. I love you. I like
Love or lust.
Which one is it, man? Man, there's a lot of people in relationships now because somebody's hair was straight and wavy. Oh, look at his hair, and he got hazel eyes. Oh my God! 6 months later, with that being the turnover rate of divorce? What are the spans of time? Are people staying married for 6 months, a year?
Good question. I don't see too many short-term, we would call those very short-term marriages. I don't see too many of those. I'd say that there's the old adage that it's the 7-year itch, and people get divorced at 7 years. I don't see that. I see more like 15 to 20.
Okay.
I see a lot of divorces at 15 to 20 years. And the kids are a little older, usually. They're teenagers. They don't need as much double parenting. And people who might have thought, I'm going to get divorced at the 7-year, wait till the 17-year because of maybe that factor.
Yeah.
The longer you wait, however, the more money you're going to have to divide, and the more chance of spousal support. Because if one parent stays home when the kids are born, and it's not always the woman, still generally, but I have some with men, that person stays home and raises the kids, they're considered an equal partner, and they're entitled to some spousal support to help them move forward by themselves.
Sometimes you got to stay home and be the best Madden player you can be. You just got to do it for the sake of your family.
That's right. That's right.
Get it, man. Stay at home, play Xbox, man.
That was something when I first learned about that was I had a coworker. She was a teacher. I worked at a group home, and we was in I brought the kids to her class. But one day, we would have conversations and stuff. And she was looking real stressed one day, and I asked her, "What's going on? You're not looking yourself today." And she was saying, "I have to pay. I'm paying my ex-husband alimony, right?"
Yeah, we call it spousal support now, but
yeah.
it is alimony.
Okay. So when she said it, I was like, wait a minute. I'm scratching my head and everything. He's getting money from you? She was like, yeah, because I made more and just what you just explained. It blew my mind. I was like, what man is going to
Well done,
ask a woman to give me some money after we split up? Like,
Well, now it's funny you say that, because some men say, I tell them they have every right to do that, and they don't want to do it. It's a stigma they don't want to go through.
yeah.
Even though they're the ones who stayed home, they're the ones who took care of the kids, sacrificed their own career.
The ones who probably don't want it are probably the ones who deserve it most.
Probably.
And then the ones who just like, man, you said you going to do what? And I can stay at home and watch Jerry? What? Yes, I will.
Yeah, that blew my mind.
That's creepy, man.
I often find that when I started practicing in the 80s, men were the most reluctant to give up any of their share of the pie in a divorce, and they would say things like, well, that pension, I earned that pension, that's mine. No, it's marital. Now I find that women who often are more successful than their husbands, they're very unhappy about having to give up that piece of the pie.
Your pension. That's... So how does splitting up stuff go? Because I saw something online where a couple was divorcing. They were trying to figure out who was going to get the air miles. Like, legit trying to figure out how we split these air miles.
That is a real asset. Just like credit card debt is a debt you have to split, the credit card rewards and points, those have to be split. So generally it's a 50-50 split of all marital assets and marital debt. And anything you consider to be an asset that has any trading power. Now, I'll tell you something interesting that we're having trouble with is timeshares. People buy these timeshares. Half the time they don't use them. They get sold a timeshare.
Yeah.
They buy it. They don't use it, but they still owe money on it. Well, guess what? You can't resell that and recoup what you still owe on it because new ones are being sold every day. That's a hard one to divide because you're really dividing a debt.
So how have you worked that out before?
Sometimes we will, one person really wants it, and they'll take it, and they'll take the debt. And sometimes they'll actually divide the debt and trade off who gets the timeshare each year.
Can you share some of the crazy asset divisions that you had to... I don't know if you held to a certain...
Well, I mean, I can do it in a general term.
Okay.
No specific cases, obviously, no names. The fact that you brought up the points, I have had serious cases, arguments on that. I have also had, which of those points did I earn because I've been saving them for something? Did I earn before marriage? So that's interesting. And if you claim you have something before marriage that's still ongoing during marriage, you have to prove that you had it before marriage. That's your burden.
Yeah.
Everything's presumed to be marital unless you prove otherwise. Now, I'll tell you what people can get really difficult about is their household goods. And the court's position on that is if you can't figure out a way to divide those, we're going to make a master list. We're going to flip a coin, and you'll each will choose, flip a coin on who goes first. Then you'll each choose till they're all gone. In my early career, I literally sat in a 3-hour meeting dividing household goods. I will never do that again.
And you're really flipping a coin in a litigious decision.
Uh-huh. Just to see who goes first. Because how are you going to decide who goes first?
Wow.
It seemed like it should be a better way.
Doesn't it, though? But people get odd about their household goods.
You see that changing anytime soon about how you split stuff up?
I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. Did you ever see the War of the Roses movie? Where they broke the glasses because they couldn't, there was an uneven set, so they broke the glasses so they could each take an even number? There's some truth to that. That's hyperbole, but there was some truth to that.
So what's some wisdom that you could give to avoid stuff like that? Or
Well, one great way is a prenup.
yeah.
And I see very few of them. I only do a few a year. People don't think about it. So,
I think they think about it, but it's a guilt that come with that.
You're right. You're right. Especially if one spouse has more money than the other. But it's a great tool, and it's a great tool for two reasons. One, if you do a prenuptial agreement, then it says, this is how we're going to handle things going forward, what's going to be marital, what's not going to be marital. You can exclude things that would be marital otherwise. And so that's a good thing to do. Like if you have a business of your own, maybe you don't want to share in the growth of that business. You can exclude that. If you don't have one, you're going to share in the growth of that business. So if my practice is worth $500,000 the day I get married and $2 million when I get divorced, I only get to exclude that $500,000. The rest of it's marital. Now you can do a prenup and say, no, I'm excluding the whole business. But there is another good reason to do a prenup, even if you don't want to exclude property. In the state of Ohio, anything you own before marriage is yours, unless it's gone down the road. So if I have a house and I get married to someone else who has a house and we both sell our houses and put the money into a new house, my $20,000 and their $30,000 still gets put back out to us in the divorce. That's Ohio law, so you don't need a prenup for that. But what would be nice, because people, after they've been married 20 years, they don't keep track of those things. The prenup one thing you could do that, not do a prenup, but you could make the list that we make in a prenup. In other words, I list all my separate property, you list all your separate property, and then 20 years from now, we know exactly what we had then. And we're not fighting about it.
I feel like if people did that, they'd be like, man, we might as well just keep dating. Let's just keep dating and be friends, because it's getting...
But remember, it's the business side. You have to think about the business side. And you have to tell that to the people in divorces, too. They get very emotional, and you have to say, okay, I understand that. I'll give you a name of a counselor so you can help yourself with your emotions. But right now, we have to deal with the business end of this. We have to deal with the breakup of a partnership and how we're going to do that in the best way for you. And if you can take the emotion out of it, then you can break up the business.
But marriage is filled with emotions.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And then when the new girlfriend or boyfriend comes in the picture, it can really ratchet up the stakes.
That's like Jeff Bezos.
Yes.
With his divorce.
Yes.
Billionaire.
Yes.
Now his wife is like the fourth richest woman because of what she got from him.
Correct. But she was there the whole time. She was there the whole way.
Yeah,
so
man.
She rides the coattails.
Yeah. What about it's an issue going on? Well, we can talk about that in a minute. Annulments. How long do you have to be like, oh, this is not the right fit?
Annulments are not what people think they are. Annulments require that either you have not consummated the marriage. Can you imagine that?
What's that mean? You just haven't had sex?
Hadn't had sex.
That's the ceiling of
That's
a deal?
one. That's one. So if you've married and not had sex yet, you can get an annulment.
Hey, that's
Do
crazy.
you think that happens?
Never. Close to never.
Close to never. The other one is fraud. You have to prove that your spouse committed fraud. For example, your spouse and you discussed, I want to have children. Me too. You get married and find out your husband has had a vasectomy.
Okay.
So there's fraud.
Breach the contract.
Yes.
You told me there was a working penis that came with this. There's no working penis.
It works. It just doesn't shoot anything.
Blanks. You got the prop gun.
So those are really the only ways you can get an annulment. And people think they should be able to do that. We separated after 6 months. I haven't seen him for 10 years. Neither one of us bothered to get a divorce. We should get an annulment. That's not a good reason.
So
you might be able to get a church annulment, but that's a whole different ball game than a legal annulment.
Right.
What's the difference between? Because I know somebody who got married. You can go get married and not get the certificate, or not go through the. What's the difference between getting a marriage license and actually getting married? Are those two different things?
Well, you could have a ceremony, but
Okay.
if you haven't had it sanctioned by the state, you're not legally married. And sanctioning by the state means the marriage license.
In 2019, where everything is about the individual, why would anybody even get married these days? Do you?
Well, I think people still believe in a partnership. They still believe in being married for their kids. You have all the best intentions when you get married. You're not looking that it's not going to last.
Yeah.
You believe it's going to last.
Yeah.
I don't think as an institution we should throw it away. I think it does make you think longer and harder about separating than you would if you just lived with someone.
You married?
That's a complicated question. And I'll tell you why.
Because you know the game.
No. I've been with my partner for 27 years. But until 2015, we weren't allowed to get married.
Okay.
And so we are going to get married, but we're not quite ready yet. Our 21-year-old son is very gung-ho on us getting married.
Explain the importance of just thinking out your decision. Explain the importance of that from your standpoint.
Well, one of the reasons that we have waited is that for 25 years, I never got my partner's health insurance when she worked for a big company. I don't get her pension. She's retired. I don't get her pension because she couldn't be married to me, and you can only leave it to a spouse. So now, because she's retired and she's the biological mother, the only FAFSA information is hers. So it enables our son to have more funds for college. So that was a big factor for us.
Sometimes you just got to do what worked for you.
And, if they'd given me that, I'd have gotten married in 1992 if they'd given me the same rights and let me. But since they didn't, why should I abandon what he could get now?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
And more importantly, in this type of situation, well, I think period, but definitely when a situation comes up like that, where what's more important for the children could be a different route that you take, as opposed to you two. You guys know y'all love each other. You know what your commitment is. You don't need the paperwork to manifest what the commitment is and sustain it for however long you've been together. So sometimes you have to use the system against itself to make sure that, in a legal way, of course, to make sure that, just like you're saying, so your son could benefit more, as opposed to if you would have been married already, they would have took into consideration your income, and then it'd have been a whole different.
Correct. And like I said, I didn't get health insurance I should have gotten for 25 years. I don't get a pension I should have gotten. So the law works both ways.
Right.
Now that you can be together, if you were to get married, would it be like back? Would you be able to?
That's a very interesting question. And it came up when Obergefell was passed. And so we actually had a committee meeting of the domestic relations attorneys with the court in Hamilton County, and that issue was raised. Well, how do we handle if we have gay couples now that are going to get divorced going forward, if they've been together for 20 years, do we go back? And there was an argument that no, because we don't have common law marriage anymore. Common law marriage used to be you didn't have to have a certificate and have the state sanction your marriage as long as you held yourselves out to be married. You filed joint tax returns, you took each other's names, you introduced yourself as husband and wife. We got rid of that in 1985.
Really?
Got rid of it in Ohio. So as a result, unless your relationship predates that, you can't have a common law marriage anymore. But how is it fair? Those are people who chose not to get married, right?
Mm-hmm.
How is it fair to say, okay, we're not going back beyond the date of Obergefell because you didn't get married? But you couldn't get married.
Right.
Now, you could get married in Massachusetts earlier, but you couldn't get divorced in another state because the other states didn't recognize. So if you're in Ohio, they didn't recognize a Massachusetts marriage. So you couldn't get divorced. So people didn't do it. They didn't run and get married in another state because, my God, getting a divorce would be a nightmare.
Right.
So as a result, once Obergefell passed, now marriage is legal everywhere, and that it is retroactive. But if you didn't go get married in one of those states, you're not legally married. So let's say you get married now. Should we go back or shouldn't we go back? Well, I'm an advocate of you should go back. Because it wasn't that people didn't want to get married, they couldn't get married. And as far as I'm concerned, all the things that I've built up over the years, I wouldn't have without my partner. So we should go back.
If you're married in your heart, though, man, who can really tell you anything?
Well, I agree with you.
I guess the IRS or something could tell you. Let me tell you something, man. We just saw, we do music. So we just saw one of our premier musicians die. His name was Nipsey Hussle. He was a West Coast rapper. At the time of his death, he had a lot of money. He has a 10-year-old daughter. He was the daughter's mother. He wasn't with the daughter's mother. She was like estranged. She had her own life, doing whatever. But he was with another woman who he had married, who was raising up that daughter. There was a custody dispute because his sister, his blood sister, wanted to take the 10-year-old in her custody, and she actually has, I guess, temporary custody until they figure out what they're going to do. I think that's a practical thing. A lot of times people die, you don't see it coming, and then it's like, what do we do with this kid? Especially when it's attached to that much money and assets.
Right.
How does that work?
Well, that's California, and I can't speak to California. I can only speak to Ohio.
Okay.
But first of all, everyone should do a will and designate a guardian for their child. Even married people should, because if they both die, you want to know who's taking your kid. So ideally, you do a will with a guardianship, and you do a trust where the money goes to the child, and whoever has custody of the child can't use it.
Because the mother came back, of course, when he died and was trying to, but she had all types of issues, other issues that they weren't going to deal with that. But yeah.
So that would be the ideal. Obviously, he didn't do that.
Yeah.
So the next step is they look for a relative. Now, if the mother is not in the picture, it's a lot easier to compete with an aunt. The new wife would have a lot better, the stepmother would have a lot better chance of competing with an aunt than a mother. Because parents have the constitutional right to raise their children. So in order for a non-parent to get custody of a child against a parent, you have to show that that parent is unfit. As far as it between non-relatives, you can just show the best interest of the child. So hopefully the woman who was raising that child would already have a step up, you would think, unless there were issues.
Yeah.
Have you ever been a part of a case where one parent was proven, the mother was proven unfit? Obvious drug abuse,
right.
Obvious physical abuse from the person they were with.
Right.
The father, business owner, had an older child that was raised the older child through high school, college, doing a lot of things for children in the school systems here in Cincinnati,
Right.
and juveniles locked up, had a movie that was geared towards keeping giving kids different decisions to make instead of veering off doing the wrong thing and ending up in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened was the first court appearance that had to take place, she didn't show up at all.
The mother. Mm-hmm.
So they what's the word when you had to come back again to do it?
Continuance.
Thank you. After the continuance came back, she didn't come again. But in the end, she still was able to keep custody of the child. And her mother, she played a part in it as well. I think she had some type of guardianship or something. Both of the women were able to have more control of the child's situation than the father. The effects of this is the child grows up, he's abused, has a lot of psychological issues, and it basically resulted in him committing suicide as he became an early adult. So now you have all of this hurt, these years of hurt, where something could have been done in a proper manner for the child, but it wasn't able to because the judge sided with the mother. Have you ever had, not that specific, but have you ever had a situation where it's like, oh my God, this is like the wrong decision that's being made here?
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yes, that happens sometimes. And I don't know any of the circumstances there. I don't know the case.
Right.
But there are things that you can do to try to make sure that something doesn't go off the rails that badly.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, make sure you have an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to me that I couldn't do what you guys do here. I don't have any training or knowledge in it. Why do people think they can do what I do? And then people do all the time. They call and say, well, do I really need an attorney for this? And my answer is, what do you do? And then I ask if I can step into that role today.
Right.
And usually the answer is no.
Right.
And I said, well, it's the same thing here. I don't care if you hire me, but hire somebody. Because I can't fix it if you mess it up. If you represent yourself, you're stuck with whatever bad things you do to yourself. And I can't fix it. So first thing is to have an attorney who knows what they're doing in that area. Second thing is probably, in that case, to get what's called a guardian ad litem. A guardian ad litem is a lawyer who's trained to try to look out for the best interest of children. And what they do is they will go out and do a real investigation. Investigate mom, investigate dad, talk to the child, talk to the teachers, psychologists, coaches, anyone important to the child, to get a picture of the whole child's life, and then make a recommendation on what would be best for that child. And that can go a long way with the court, because the court's seeing a very small picture. They're seeing people trying to present themselves in their best light in court on maybe 1 day or 2 days.
Right.
So you need something to investigate the whole scenario.
You're listening to the Nomtombout Radio Show, 91.7 WVXU, your HD2 station, or you're streaming us live on RadioArtifact.com. This is news you can use, man. We got Cathy R. Cook from Cathy R. Cook Law, family attorney here, giving you some game so you can go in there and get your babies, man. What about the babies? That's what Nancy Grace always says.
There you go. It's all about the babies.
Now,
I'd like to address one issue, if I may.
Okay.
I find that a lot of times, because of child support gets set because if anyone ever has to go on any kind of public assistance, maybe they had some problems and they've had to get on to public health insurance, or they've had to have some help along the way, and then they're asked who the father is of the child if they're not married, and so they give the name, and then all of a sudden there's a child support order. And what I find is sometimes people, when they have trouble paying that child support order and they develop an arrearage of child support, then they walk away because they don't want anybody coming after the child support by trying to get custody of the child or parenting time of the child.
Walk away from the child or walk away from the job?
From the child.
Okay.
Well, sometimes the job, but I'm talking about
people
now.
Who quit their job, refuse to work because they don't.
Well, I'm not as interested in those people. I'm interested in the ones who want to help their child and want to see their child.
Yeah.
And those folks, because they got in a bad initial situation, and here's another thing, they don't know that if they lose their job through no fault of their own, they get laid off. They should immediately have child support reviewed. I get calls all the time. My child support based on my last job, and I'm making less than that because I couldn't find the same job. Why didn't you file for a reduction? I can do that? Absolutely. But you can't do it now because now you can't go backwards. So the second you lose a job for a layoff or something, go to CSEA, Child Support Enforcement Agency, and say, I need a review of my child support. And child support and parenting time are really two separate things.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to come in on parenting just because you have an arrearage of child support. And those arrearages can't be eliminated, but the payment you make on them can be reduced. So those are important things for people to know.
I know about that.
Don't just back away.
I definitely know about that. Definitely.
There's some pretty famous people out here paying a ridiculous amount of child support. Alex A. Rodriguez ordered to pay $115,000 a month in child support and spousal support.
Ooh.
Yeah. How do these things happen? Charlie Sheen, $110,000 between 5 kids a month.
Well, child support is based upon incomes.
Yeah.
And it's based upon a ratio of incomes from one parent and the other parent.
Let's talk about it.
Okay. So it's a worksheet, and so you put the parents' incomes on one line, and then you put any extra income. So if you have a base pay and then you're a overtime, bonus, commission kind of a person, you add that in too. And then you come up with the full amount both parents are making. Then you take that amount, so let's say it's $100,000 combined income, just to throw out a number that I can easily do math on, because lawyers don't do math. My son does, he's an engineering student, but that's a different matter. So if I have one child, about 10% of that $100,000 is for child support between the two parents. So if one makes $70,000, one makes $30,000, the $70,000 one's going to pay 70% of that $10,000, and the $30,000 one's going to cover 30% of that $10,000. And then it goes up as you have more children. So for 2 children, it runs about 15%. For 3, it runs about 18%. And for 4, it runs about 22%. So that it doesn't double with every child. Okay? And then you have to add into that the cost of health insurance as well as the cost of daycare. Now, child care can go really high.
You gotta train
especially
your
if you
kid
have
to
a
watch
baby.
yourself.
So that's the thing. Now, I'll tell you something interesting. In March, we have the child support law was revamped, and it actually helps lower income people.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually giving a break to those folks in the real lower echelon. You know, a lot of lower income people can't even afford child care and work. Their pay goes all to child care, which is a terrible system we need to fix. But at least this new worksheet gives some relief.
Yeah. Man, we on that topic of child support, and I think it's a real prevalent topic. We just kind of talked about the ratio on another person, Brendan Fraser, $75,000 a month per kid. I saw Diddy was like, P. Diddy was like $50,000 or something like that. But
you have to look at the incomes.
Yeah, the incomes are crazy.
I mean, that's
How does somebody? I don't understand. I think when I was younger, my dad was assigned to pay like $30 a month. Don't laugh. It was my real life.
That was there is a minimal order.
Yeah.
And those minimal orders are less than $100 a month. If
And
somebody is not working, and they're not working not because they decided not to work so they didn't have to pay child support, they're not working because they can't, or they don't have the skills. So now in this economy, almost anybody who wants a job can get a job, even if that's minimum wage.
Right.
So our courts are tending to impute at least minimum wage to people.
That's crazy order. I saw a couple times where somebody, the woman was trying to get the guy for more money, went back to court, and the judge lowered it. She left sadder than she came.
It can happen. It can happen. I do get calls like that. I don't know if he's making more money, but I think he is. Well, are you making more money? Yes. Well, you're taking somewhat of a risk if you file the motion, because if you file the motion and find out, because you do what's called discovery, you get to have them give you their information, and we get the information, and he's actually making the same or less, and the ex-wife's making more, and you drop your motion. Well, guess what? He's going to file his own motion.
How many times do you see somebody just like, oh, okay, they got to sign the payment, but you're just like, that's totally unfair. That's ridiculous.
That I think that?
Yeah, where it's like the person can't even live comfortably.
I have hardly ever had that situation, but remember, I'm representing usually that person, and so they're not going to get that
Right.
bad order if I'm on the case. Now,
Right.
there are such things as deviations, and deviations can go up or down. So even if the worksheet says X amount of dollars, I can argue as the attorney for this person, wait a minute, he has these serious health problems, or he has a kid with serious health problems, or a spouse with serious health problems, or he has to travel for work and won't be able to see the child. There's things that you can argue that make it different. Why it shouldn't be more, it should be more, it should be less. So sometimes it can be a different number, but I don't deal with the kinds of cases you're giving me examples
Right.
on.
I want to know about the trashy ones.
Oh, well, I don't know if I have any trashy ones.
The Jerry Springer of cases.
Oh no, that's not my style.
How does somebody go about filing a modification?
Good question. There's two ways to do it. One is you can actually go through the Child Support Enforcement Agency in your county. So if you are in Hamilton County, you can call the Child Support Enforcement Agency. You're assigned a technician based on your last name. So you give them your name. They give you with your technician. They can send you out paperwork to ask for review. Review can happen once every 3 years for no reason, and anytime you have a change in job status. So if I get laid off, I can ask for a review. And that's what you should do right away. Even if you think, oh, I'm going to get a job quickly, what if that turns into 6 months, a year? Now you're paying child support based on your old income, and you're not making it.
Yeah.
So you need to file right away. And then that way, the Child Support Enforcement Agency, they will send out documentation to both sides. You fill that out. If you don't like the result of that one, you can appeal to an administrative person who has an actual hearing with the two people. Those things you can handle on your own. It's only past that point when if somebody appeals it to the court that you need an attorney.
All right. And it's called child support, right?
Child Support Enforcement Agency.
No, just in
is
general.
the-
It's
oh,
child
yeah, it's
support.
child support.
Child support.
Yes.
Child support.
Yes.
Not baby mama support, right?
Uh,
I like that laugh.
you're right. And there have been cases in this. I'll tell you a famous case in this. The old quarterback for the Bengals. This was a published case, so I can talk about it. He wasn't my client.
Yeah.
Jeff, remember him? Help me here.
Is it done?
So you guys are too
in the
young.
80s?
Guys are too young. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All I know is
he
Kenny.
he had a child out of wedlock, and they were trying to get the attorney for her was trying to get a massive amount of money, and the judge said, only so much of this is going for a child. The rest of it's going for the mother. So no, we're going to limit that, even though he had a huge salary.
Okay. All right.
So in Ohio, it's not that crazy.
Can you kind of explain a little bit about arrears? I had a lot
Sure.
of questions about arrears too.
Sure. So I mentioned it a little bit earlier that unfortunately, if you do nothing, so let's say that you had an order and you lost your job, or you didn't even know you had an order. That happens sometimes. Let's say you're living with a relative, and the court serves you at that relative's, and gee, they forgot to give you the paperwork, so you didn't go. So whatever the mother says your income was, they'll just take it because they don't have you there. You've been served. You chose not to come. Not really, because you didn't know about it, but you have to prove that. So you get an order, and you go with the order, and now you find out 3 years later I've got a $50,000 arrearage. That's a little much, but I'm just using it for hyperbole.
Yeah.
You can't fix that unless you can prove you never got service. You'd have to prove that, number one. So if you can't fix it, what do you do? Well, you said some people just quit their job so they can't have it garnished. The best thing to do is to file a motion and say, hey, I want to pay my support, the right amount of support based on what I'm earning now. So let's redo that. And let's go back to the old one and let's reduce how much I pay per pay period.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you can do that.
Yeah. There's a lot of people I feel like suffering from that too.
They do, because your driver's license can be taken.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any license you have could be taken. So if you're a contractor, a licensed contractor, your license could be taken.
Yeah.
Attorneys' licenses could be taken.
What's the science behind somebody being back in child support, then you take their mode of transportation to get to money to pay the child support?
You know, the theory is that if you do that, they'll come forward with some money.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
You can go to CSEA, Child Support Enforcement Agency, and say, look, if I can't drive, because we're not the best public transportation city, we all know that.
Right.
If I can't drive to work, I can't pay any child support. And they will. Now, let's say you're somebody who never let them know when you change jobs and all that. So if you come in and say, here's my job, here's my payroll information, give me back my driver's license so you can now start garnishing my wages. They will do that.
Yeah. Okay.
But you have to work with them.
Yeah.
Right.
And what office do you go to do that? Same office?
Child Support Enforcement Agency.
Child Support
in the
Enforcement.
county that your case was in.
Okay. Is there when the child is even born, how does custody versus rights?
Mm-hmm. So if you're married,
Okay.
you both have equal rights to the child. And then the court has to decide what's in the child's best interest. Is it to have shared parenting, which is the preferred method of parenting? It means the parents have to discuss and agree on the most important issues for their kids. Medical, school, extracurricular activities, things like that. So the parents are required to discuss them and try to agree on them. If they can't agree, then they go to mediation. If that doesn't work, then they resort to the court. The other method of custody is sole custody. That's where one parent, mother or the father, has sole custody and makes all the decisions for the child. Now that has nothing to do with parenting time. You could still have equal parenting time and not have shared parenting. And it has nothing to do with child support. Those are separate issues.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a child that is born to an unwed mother, she has custody by law in the state of Ohio, and the father has to go to court to get rights.
Yeah.
So if let's say they're getting along, I have this all the time. You're getting along, you see the child whenever you want, all of a sudden she gets mad at you. No, you can't see the child.
And
Guess
give me
what?
my Xbox
You
back.
can't see the child until you go to court and get the court to allow you to see the child.
It's a lot of rules. A lot of rules having a baby that you don't even know exist. You can get caught up in
Right.
something and just be,
Absolutely.
yeah.
It's a whole lot easier to make them than to raise them.
Yeah, especially on the legal side.
Yes.
Man, I heard about a case in I think it was somewhere in Asia, but the guy sued his wife because they were having ugly babies. Did you hear about that?
No.
He was sued his wife because they were having ugly babies and found out before they got together she had facial reconstruction surgery. So he sued her and won. I don't know. I'm not sure what he won. But does that sound legit?
Not in this country.
Nah.
That's crazy.
It would be all types of cases. People be pulling off wigs and hey, rubbing off eyebrows. You fooled me. The club was dark.
Now, I will tell you that there have been lawsuits over transmittal of venereal disease to a spouse.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wins in that case.
No.
No matter what the judge say, everybody loses.
Right.
Man.
Everybody lost that day, man. You gotta let it burn, man. Like Usher said.
Oh.
Have you ever seen? What does the judge do when it's a? Please don't Please don't come after me, man. What do you do when there's a woman who has multiple kids by multiple fathers? She's in court maybe for the 5th time, doing a new child support order on a 5th baby by a 5th man. Does the judge ever be like, hey, put a clamp on it?
Well, we have a constitution, remember?
Freedom
And
of
you
bodies.
can do what you want with your body. It's not a very wise thing to do. But I'll tell you another thing the new child support law did was it doesn't punish that last child now. It used to punish the last child in that situation because the first person to run to court and get a child support order got the highest amount. Because then there used to be a credit for each child you had paying whatever child support you were paying on the next child. So if I go in on the 3rd child and he's already got an order on 1 and 2, that comes off the top of his income. It used to. Now they've changed that. So they're all treated equally.
When did that change?
March of this year.
Okay. Because I know I went through that. I had 4 children, 2 with one woman and 2 with another. And that's what it seemed like for the last, really, like you said, the very last one, but even like with the last 2, because that one, the first 2 children was
Got
coming
the
out
most.
first. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that has
And
been
then when
changed, and you might look into that.
When that changed, well, everybody's grown now, but when that changed, there was I still had some favor, some kind of way. I still was getting some type of favor out of the situation because initially, I thought I was going to a meeting about custody. So, speaking of the marriage thing, we had a ceremonial wedding, right? Never did
Never legal.
Never did the legal. Matter of fact, the license I think was lost. That was the omen. Like the marriage license was lost. So years later, we're not together. Thinking I'm coming to have a conversation with someone about shared custody or something like that. They're like, "Hey, first we're gonna need that child support." And I was like, "Oh man, you got me."
And it was in the arrears by then,
Nah.
No, she hadn't filed.
I had proof that I had been taking care of the children
Okay.
and all the stuff like that. But what ended up happening is what they told me that my child support was going to be was lower than what I was giving her anyway. So it kind of like, that's what I'm saying. That was one favor that was given for me. And then as time went on, that other situation came up when I had the other, I had the 2 younger children, and it was always seeming like like you're saying, most of that money was going to the first, off the top, the first set of children. Then at some,
Right.
I can't remember exactly what happened to where things started to change, and it was more evenly. But I didn't have a lawyer. Well, I had a lawyer. I didn't have someone that I went and looked up and actually hired. You know what I'm saying? You got a court-appointed attorney or whatever. So, but my situation, I never was in the ridge like a crazy amount. I mean, it probably wasn't even. What was it? It would have been, might have been 5,000, I think, or something like that. So I was able to.
But they filed a contempt.
What happened? Yeah. What happened with me? What happened? I lost it. This was old. What was it? When was this supposed to been the what you call it when the economy's going bad? Whatever that term.
Recession?
The recession. I had a city position working with with children at a group home, and then eventually they shut down one house, shut down another house, and then they shut down the last house. So and then it was hard to get jobs in that field again because it wasn't only happening to my company, it was happening to different companies that were doing the same thing, but we were like the last one, so everybody had jumped ship, went and got all the other good jobs that were still available in the field, that I was in. So of course, and I was an entrepreneur as well. Like he said, we do music,
Right.
Tour and all kind of stuff like that, but I was doing all that in addition to the other thing. So the unemployment had kicked in and all that
Child
stuff.
support?
my unemployment I had gotten unemployment, so then things had to start changing. That's how I got, like you said, let them know that you.
Yes.
So I let them know, but it was probably 8 months after the fact. So that's where my problem came in.
Yep.
And that's why we ended up having to go to court, and then
you got to do it right away.
Got to do it right away. Yeah. So
if you get a new job and it's better, you can always say never mind. But you got to do it right away.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about visitation.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work in a general state?
We try to parent our kids now, so we call it parenting time. You don't visit your kids.
Right.
So we don't want that stigma on anybody.
Yeah, it
so
comes with a set of connotations.
Like to call it parenting time.
Okay.
And so to seek parenting time, if you are married and you're getting a divorce or you're separated, and your spouse isn't letting you see the child even though you have every right to, you can file an action. You can either file a divorce and seek parenting time, or you can file an action in juvenile court and seek parenting time, not a divorce.
Yeah.
If you're not married, then you go to juvenile court for everything. So if you want to, you can file a motion for custody, shared parenting, parenting time, all in one motion. Child support is a separate motion. So if he filed for custody, she would have had to file for child support.
Okay.
So when you went in on a child support motion, and they were never going to talk to you about custody.
Right.
You had to file that separately.
Right.
And have a separate hearing.
Right.
That's where people don't understand. They think once you're in court, you can deal with both issues. If you're not married, those are two separate cases.
Ins and outs, man. The ins and outs.
Yeah. That's it. When the child support situation happened, everything was going good with my job. I had just probably got promoted, all kind of stuff with her. So that wasn't. So you don't. Because I'm the type of person then, and still to this point today, but I will make the correct decisions as it comes to that type of thing. But back then, I just didn't want to deal with no courts. I didn't want to deal with no systematic. So let's get this situation taken care of, because you let them in, they going to control the situation. We're not. Either one of us is going to have the control that we think we have. If that becomes an issue, but eventually, like you said, if you're mad at one person's mad at the other.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm gonna need such.
And it's like, when does the family court system ever heal a family? Does it ever heal a family?
Well, unfortunately, it's not designed for that.
Right.
There are things that you can get involved in that try to help you have a smoother transition as your family changes. You can do mediation, where a third party tries to help the parents come to agreements without duking it out in court. There's a system of collaborative law where everyone sits down and tries to reach an agreement, and the tug there is, well, if we don't reach an agreement, you're going to have to hire new attorneys. These attorneys can't go forward. So the hope is, well, we've spent all this money on these attorneys, let's settle it. But it doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
So now if you can, if you really want to try to solve this before you file for divorce, you can do the mediation and all of that. But once you're in divorce, the court is going to take over unless you can come to an agreement.
What would you suggest for somebody? Maybe, because I was looking at a few cases with visitation. Sometimes you say, like, the parent is not letting you see the kid, no matter what the visitation order is. Is it anything that the court can do against the parent who's holding the kid?
Yes. That's another contempt. So just like you have contempt for not paying child support, you can have contempt for not providing parenting time.
And then what's the end all be out of that? How's that
Well,
punishment
if
work?
it continues, that's one of the factors to change custody.
Yeah.
If one parent is not allowing parenting time and not allowing the relationship to grow between the other parent and the child, that can be a factor to change custody.
What if somebody wants to visit their kid? Somebody has visitation set up with their kid, but outside of those visitation hours, the parent is like, you can go ahead and take her, you can go ahead and take him. Would you tell them to do that or not do that? Because I saw situations where somebody called the cops and was like, my kid was kidnapped.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Wow.
Now, in shared parenting, you can't do that because
Yeah.
both parents are the residential parents and legal custodians. So you don't have that danger in shared parenting.
Okay.
Sole custody, yes, that could happen. So you always want to document those
Yeah.
extra times.
Just to set you up, possibly.
You want to document them by text, email, some way to say, okay, thank you, I'm going to confirm. It's a call. I am texting to confirm that you just said I could come and get Johnny on Saturday and keep him till Monday. If I don't hear back from you, that is our agreement.
Yeah.
At least you have something in writing to show the police when they arrive. Okay? But if you're going to do that, let's say you change the whole schedule. Some people do that.
Yeah.
And then one person gets mad. 2 years down the road, one person gets mad and says, "Oh, this is our schedule, not what you're doing," because you never documented it.
Mm.
So you have to go back to court and do an agreed entry that says, "This is our schedule now," so you don't get into that possible contempt action.
This conversation is stressful. I don't even have no kids. But it's like, man, this is stressful just hearing it. Geez.
It's definitely it can feel like war. It can definitely feel like you know somebody you were so close with. We're gonna, even if we split up, we're gonna be friends and all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? And then eventually you get to the point where it is like war to roses, and you on this side and that person's on that side. You're not agreeing to nothing, and then all this.
Somebody who said they love you will treat you like they never knew you. That's scary.
It can happen. We also try when we really want the parents to be able to help their kids, because remember, this kid is both people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you treat the other parent badly, the child's going to take that on.
Yeah.
So another thing we try sometimes is co-parenting counseling, where we try to have them meet with a counselor and discuss how they can behave in a civil and business-like manner for their kid's sake.
That's illegal, right? To badmouth the other parent to the kid?
Well, it usually there's a provision that you're not supposed to do that, in a shared parenting plan especially.
Yeah.
But the court, again, will look badly on the parent who's doing that when it comes back to court for parenting time or custody.
Yeah. See, I know I had a couple more questions for you. One thing that was on my mind is just explain, when you walk into a courtroom, you under maritime law. Explain maritime law.
Well, I don't know where you got that.
Is that not true?
That is not true in family law.
In family law?
No.
Is it true in
There is maritime law of something that happens on the river
Yeah.
or on the water.
Because I heard that as soon as you step foot into a courtroom, you're not under regular law, you're under maritime law, and it was a way to like confuse you. And
No.
I feel like you just said no. You like, I'll never tell you.
No. That's not correct.
Okay,
that's
it's not
correct.
All right. Too many conspiracy videos on YouTube.
Yeah, maritime law is about things that happen on the water,
Okay.
and it does apply to the river. So if something happens there, but
Is it true that if you go into court without representation, you pretty much considered a baby?
if you go onto court by yourself, the court is going to hold you to the same standard as an attorney.
Okay.
So if you mess it up, you can't go back and say, "Oh, I wasn't an attorney. Sorry."
Okay.
You can't fix it.
Yeah. All right.
So that's the problem.
All right.
There's a saying, if you represent yourself, you have a fool for a client,
Right.
Man.
including attorneys. We should never represent ourselves.
Really?
Oh, heavens no.
Why?
Because you're not objective.
Yeah. Totally biased.
Yeah.
my
And I'll tell you the other
my
thing.
client is innocent.
If you go into court and the other side has an attorney, you better get an attorney.
Yeah, definitely. That might be all we have for you today. I don't want to overwhelm people. I feel overwhelmed. But I definitely appreciate
Well,
you.
I'm open to any follow-up questions that anybody has. My office is 513-241-4029. The website, as I said, is cathycooklaw.com. We offer people a 15-minute phone call to see if we can get them in the right direction before they even have to come in and pay anything.
Yeah. So make sure you get at Cathy.
You know any good vasectomy doctors?
Yourself. Just do it yourself.
Oh,
On YouTube,
my.
you can learn that also.
You have a pool for patients.
There you go.
Vasectomies. You got any social media?
I'm not much on the internet because I would probably fight with people.
Right. Well,
I'm very opinionated and don't keep my mouth shut.
I would love to see you in action in the courtroom.
Well, that's my bailiwick. That's where I love to be.
Okay. I want to come watch you one day. Well, Murphy Brown was a lawyer, right?
That's true.
Hey, you should be in the reboot. We're going to start it, Cincinnati Murphy Brown. Tell everybody where you're going to be at. Give out that number one more time.
It's 513-241-4029. And it's cathycooklaw.com. And we're very easy to find. I come up number one right after the ads on Google. If you just put my name in, Cathy Cook Attorney.
So I found her. Yeah. And one more time, just for the women out there with still a heart, kind of a warm heart, and they like,
You know what? James really is a good man. I'm going to go ahead and take him off of child support.
where should she go?
She also goes to the Child Support Enforcement Agency.
Okay.
And they will have to do an agreed entry
Yeah.
to do that. And if there's an arrearage, she can forgive the arrearage, but the state won't forgive any benefits she got.
Can the state pick that up? That
Not
child
if she agrees. No, not if she agrees. Now, if she's on public assistance, yes.
support?
But not if she agrees and she's not on public assistance.
Okay.
The state's not going to pay for a child that has a father who can pay for a child.
Okay. Appreciate you coming out, Cathy R. Cook.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, thank you for coming.
I
Really
thoroughly
appreciate
enjoyed myself today. I want to come see you in the courtroom here. You say, objection! Tell them where you're going to be at this week, Bob.
Oh, man. Saturday 29th, we're going to be at Stoney's Pub and Grub, 5400 Carthage Avenue, for Mitch Mo's listening day party, release party as well. DJ Classy K on the ones and two. You may see a Watusi Tribe performance as well.
Turn up.
So make sure your comments from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, June 29th.
And my name is Six. If you're looking for me, you can find me on Instagram at Blaze6513. That's
BLAZESIX513.
And if you want to follow the show, make sure you follow. I know you want to follow the show. Follow us on Instagram at Nomtombout _radio. That's NOMTOMBOUT _radio. On Facebook, you can contact us at Nomtombout, NOMTOMBOUT. And also on YouTube, our YouTube page is Nomtombout Radio. Never miss one of our audio episodes by going on Google Play Podcasts or Stitcher, or you can even check us out on Spotify at Nomtombout Radio also. We really appreciate you tuning in. And you can hit us up on any of those platforms. Tell us who you want to see on the show. Tell us some of the issues you're dealing with. We want to solve problems and get answers for you here on the Nomtombout Radio Show. Nomtombout?
Yeah.
We are a slave for you like Britney Spears. I'm a slave for you. I want to serve the people, man, and give you guys some usable content, some evergreen content. Make sure you check out Inner Space, the album, Blaze 6, my debut album. Also check out the mixtape. Now I'm talking about the EP. Got new music coming at you, and make sure you keep staying tuned each and every Wednesday here on the Nomtombout Radio Show, 91.7 WVXU, your HD2 station, and also stream us live on Radio Artifact. Ticket.com. Now I'm talking about until next time. Goodbye.